This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I'm here with Rafael Cortez. He's over in Phoenix, Arizona. This young man is a go-getter. He started out working at the grocery store at 14 or so, and then became the youngest fireman in the, Tempe, Arizona area or somewhere like that, right?
Yuma, Arizona, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the youngest firefighter in the region or the state?
No, the county. I don't know about the state.
County,
I was 19. Yeah, there was no.
Yeah.
I was the youngest firefighter walking around.
He's an organizational psychologist. Never heard that before, but it sounds very interesting. He's talking about how to take that entrepreneurial mindset and to kind of organize it so it's not all over the place like most of us ADD, attention deficit entrepreneurs that we are. It's kind of like how to reel ourselves in. So we're going to be talking about that. I have a list of questions, but let's just start out, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, so
good day.
I told a little bit about your background, but where did you find real estate?
So, I became a fireman at 19 years old, but right around 2021, I was sitting down with one of my captains, and we were trying to figure out what to do with the time that we were not at the firehouse, because you're 24 on, 24 off, so you have a lot of time in between to do something. And it's like, we should probably launch a business or something. And we started talking about just a couple of possibilities. I ended up launching a transportation business, non-emergency medical transportation business. Eventually, I left the firehouse. I launched that business, and in the process, I started making some cash and whatnot. So I was sitting on money, and I didn't know what to do with it. My background in construction was, from high school and college. I would do just framing and concrete work and that sort of thing, just to, as a summer gig, right? So I took on that. I was like, well, I've done that before. Let's give it a shot. So I started flipping, and I started flipping houses around 2009. That's when I got started in real estate. But it was because I had some cash to invest, and I went out and I bought a house, and I actually bought it from a wholesaler. I didn't leverage anything, which was silly. So I bought it in cash, and I did the whole fix. So I financed the whole thing. It's not the way to do it, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to do something.
So how old were you then?
I was 2009, 26, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so 26. And then how old are you now?
Yeah, no, I just turned 39.
Yeah, okay. Boy, you're a young 39. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what was that price range of that house your first house? What did you pay for it?
So it was coming up from, 2008 happened, right? And all that stuff. So we were at the tail end of that whole section. It was like probably at the end of 2009 when I got into it. So the prices were super low. The bad thing about it was that, it was in a horrible place of town, like the worst place of town where nobody wanted properties. And I got it for I think I paid $62,000 for that house or something. It's in South Phoenix. It's crazy how price points have changed since then, right? To now.
What did you spend on it? Paid 60, whatever. What did you spend on it?
I did all the work myself. The ARV on it, or the retail price point, was about 95 to 100. And I spent about close to $25,000 on the rehab. So it wasn't something terrible, nothing crazy, right? But it wasn't what I expected. I was expecting to make, $20,000-$30,000 on a profit for my first flip, and not pay any contractors and do everything myself. It took me forever. It took forever to get
all kinds of lessons here. One is you don't need to buy the cheapest house in the ugliest part of town, because it's easier sometimes if you just move up the ladder a little bit. Number two, 100%. Don't do the work yourself, for God's sake. Was that right? Did you learn that?
1,000%.
Yeah, you were working for carpenter wages or whatever, And the third lesson is, you have to have big margins in this business, because things don't go the way you think they're going to go. They never do. I've been doing this business for 27 years and 2,500 houses and my share of rehabs, and I never hit the rehabs. You know what I mean? There's always a little bit more that meets the eye, or you go a little step further and kind of over remodel, because it's real tempting to put in the nice countertops or something, or go ahead and blow out that kitchen that you didn't plan on.
Yeah, doing non-conforming. Yeah.
And then probably one of the nicest ideas on this, is that at least on your first deal, you made some money, which was proof positive, an affirmation that, you can go in there, you didn't make as much as you want, but you made some money. Thank God you didn't make $100,000 on the house, because that might have ruined you, because I've seen it ruin 100 people. You know what I mean? Like they made too much on the first house.
Yeah.
So none of this is news to you, but what I really admire is that you got started at so young of age. I didn't find my butt with both hands till I was like 34. I'm about to turn 61 here any day now. And I really wish I tried a lot of businesses. I tried a lot of things. They just never really panned out. They weren't really me. And I'm a slow learner. It took me a while to get through, but I didn't give up. And, I didn't even give up when my first deal went almost horribly bad. I managed to escape it. I got with a con that wouldn't give me my money or my principal nor my profit, but I conned the con. Just gotta remember their weakness is big money and quick money and easy money. So I just made a new deal, but he had to pay off the first deal. The new deal was much bigger. I acted really stupid. He bid it on it, and he paid me off so he could get to some more money in my pocket, and then that deal fell through. And so,
man, always read the fine print, right? It's something that I've learned along the process too.
Well, the best cons are good at what they do, and they can even fool really, really smart people. So
you said something.
Not to say that it was that smart. I was actually.
You said something really important, which is that not giving up. I think it's a lot of times as entrepreneurs or real estate investors, we walk in there and we feel like we have the whole thing laid out, right? And it's all theory. So it's just theoretical. I'm going to do this. I'm going to step one is going to be this. Step two is going to be this. And then until you, like Mike Tyson has a great quote. He says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And once that happens, I mean, it's the story changes, right? It's a tenacity and the drive that you need to stay in there, stay in the game, not really give up. I mean, that's really 90% of the battle for entrepreneurs is just not giving up on whatever that is, that, that thing that you find. For me, it was, I love real estate. I love the space of real estate. It's a great vehicle. And I know that's my playground, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So you specialize in wholesaling.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that you've managed to systematize that so that you're not out there running around all the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that business, because almost everybody starts out as a wholesaler. I didn't happen to start out that way, but 99.9% of the people do. It's a good place to start.
Right.
It's a nice place to start, but
it's the barrier to entry is low. I mean, that's one of the, it's one of the key things. To me, I actually started flipping, and I had some cash, right? So I was sitting on some cash. I wasn't, it's low barrier to entry. It's usually, zero to, a very small amount of cash that you need to actually start getting leads in. And there's ways of doing it that is very cost effective, right? So it's something that makes sense monetarily. It either takes elbow grease or it's going to take some marketing dollars to get it done, but it's doable. And it's not one of those things that you need to have, super skill sets to accomplish. I mean, once you have it, laid out, it's something that's very, you can take a very systematic approach to it. And to me, I mean, one thing actually on the first property, I bought it from a wholesaler. I didn't even know what the settlement statement was. I just saw all kinds of numbers in there. And then I stashed it, right? Second settlement came over and I bought it from this other guy. And then I asked myself, like, where are these people getting the properties that I'm buying from them? Because they're not the seller. I wasn't going direct to seller. And he was like, oh yeah, it's one of my wholesale properties. So the second wholesaler told me what wholesaling was. And I was like, yeah, cause I see a fee, and I was seeing a fee on that second deal. I think there was a fee about like $18,000 assignment. And so you're getting $18,000 out of this thing. Oh, he goes, yeah, that's my fee. So I was his buyer, right? I didn't know what I was doing. And then I go back to that first deal, and I bought it for, I think, $62,000, but there was a $23,000 fee on that for an assignment. So the guy had locked it in the 40s, and I ended up paying, the markup, right? So it's like, wait a minute, I made less than the wholesaler in this deal because I did, and I went through all that. You did
a lot more work.
Yeah, I did a lot more work. I went through the risk of putting on, the $100,000 pretty much in the line to make about 10K back. When it was all said and done, I was like, this doesn't make sense. So I started looking into it. Um, and long story short, I mean, I started doing wholesale deals, and I figured, you know what, I like the fact that I can come in and flip my agreement or my vested interest in a contract as opposed to swinging a hammer and dealing with contractors. So everybody picks their poison, right? I mean, you have notes and financing and all that in place. People do fix and flip. I just love the process of wholesaling, negotiating deals, finding problems to solve for sellers, and then getting paid in exchange for that. I mean, it's really what it comes down to.
Okay, so one of the drawbacks that you hear all the time about wholesaling is that it's a job that you have to do it over and over again. But if you systematize it, you can get it down to where you're a business owner and the machine's running, right? Am I going in the right direction with you?
100%. Here's the thing, right? So because of the nature of the beast, because of what it takes to do wholesale, right? It's one of those things that if you get confused, you're gonna end up in that hustle mentality, in that hustle, the cage. Right. And then it's because it's doable.
And that's good. And that's good for a while. That's good
Right.
for a while, right? Because you're learning your business, you're learning the ins and outs, you're getting your teeth kicked in, you're making mistakes, you're talking to people, you're learning what objections are, you're learning how the business works from the ground up, which is important.
Absolutely. You have to go through the trench work, right? Mitch, the hustle is a season, not a business strategy. That's the thing, right? You're going to get burned out if you're always hustling, going after the deal and not having a systematic approach to it, not being able to delegate, to automate, and to do things, treat it as a business. It's something that can totally be done as a hustle. If you were to drop me right now in a market that I don't know about, I have the skill set to go out, find a buyer, get it proper in their contract, find a seller, and then make the deal happen, right? It's a skill set now. So if you're going just strictly off a hustle, it's something that's doable. However, if you want to take your time back and actually have a business and shape it, you have to be methodical about it. But the hustle it's a season. It's not a business strategy. And that's one thing that happens with most wholesalers. They stay in that hustle mode for a long, long time. Instead of, being okay with splitting, for example, commission fees to acquisitions reps, paying lead managers to pre-qualify their leads and that, and that sort of thing, and plugging them into this machine. They do everything. And what happens when you do everything? If one piece breaks, if one section breaks, meaning that your marketing is off or your disposition process is off, or the way that you negotiate deals is off, like nothing else works. Does that make sense? It's like, we're going back to the Ford assembly line here. But when you have it, when you have a systematic approach and it's linear, you know what's coming, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, you're able to plug people into that process, and you can step away from it gradually, little by little, until you're running the company. It's not running you. You have people in place making commissions, making money. You still cherry pick, because we cherry pick the deals. We're direct to seller, right? So we have the opportunity, first and foremost, to see what kind of deals we want to keep. Are we going to keep that to a portfolio? Are we going to fix and flip it? What are we going to do? Like, no, we're going to wholesale it. Cool. And it's just how the business works.
Yeah. So one of the biggest objections that I see even in my own office, because we just made our acquisition, guys. We bought 25 houses this month. It's January 2022. It's a very competitive market. It's as tough as it's ever been. I just bought, one of my biggest months, 25 houses. Maybe neither here nor there for you, but I'm taking all these houses down, with private money. And we sat down the acquisition guys, there's 3 of them, and said, the least amount of one made working with my company, for my company, the least guy made about 150, and he was down 3 months with COVID, and the most made 220. Okay. So we sat him down and says, look, you guys all have to get a VA making phone calls this year. You've made the money. You're not broke now. You've got some money in the bank, because we also coached our people on how to save and how to maintain and how to, not just watch this money disappear.
Right.
We need them to get on top so that we can stay together for long periods of time. But we started to see them burn out and said, now you're all going to have to get. So we got 3 VAs. And we trained them all together, and they do, not one VA works for one of them. The 3 VA works for all 3 of them. They just rotate the leads. And they've already picked up, 6 extra deals this month in the first month of training these VAs. No telling, they're making 800 phone calls a week, right?
Yeah.
These guys were, supposed to make 100 calls a day, and then they were down to 200 a week, which I suppose was really only 100 a week, because they're not going to tell me they were only doing 100 a week. And we could see it. So you started to get them to delegate. Now they're like the happiest guys in the world, because they're not having to make those phone calls anymore. They're doing the part of the business that they like, which is meeting people and making deals and signing contracts. Exactly. Actually, where they make their money, right?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you have what happens, and I see it often, especially with, students who are just, hiring and bringing people on. It's they'll have acquisitions do the lead sourcing, meaning that they're doing the cold calling, they're having, the initial conversations, again, plowing through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of records. By the time they get to an actual deal, they're spent, they're tired, they're worn out. And needless to say, like it doesn't give you like a clear perspective of what your opportunities are. At that point, you have your snipers doing grunt work. You know what I mean? And it's not a good way to do it. So what happens is that let's kind of break down numbers here for a little bit. So if you have, say that you're cold calling, right? I don't know, you have an operation, your marketing is cold calling. If you bring in a VA, a cold caller is going to reach out to 1,000 people, right? The way that we have it broken down is we have cold callers, we have a lead manager, and then we have acquisitions. So the cold callers reach out to 1,000 people, say that 100 of those want to sell the house or want to have a conversation about whatever. Those 100 go to a lead manager. Lead manager will pre-qualify and actually have a discovery conversation with them, and then see if based on condition, motivation, timeline, and price, it makes sense, right? To actually have a negotiation thing, because our snipers are the acquisitions. Like they are the ones that are trained to close. They're the ones that we want to keep busy, right? So out of those 100, maybe 10 make it over to acquisitions. So now my acquisitions rep, the top, shelf, the money maker, it's only talking to 10 people as opposed to talking to 1,000 or reaching out to 1,000. You know what I mean? So in terms of workload, that makes a lot more sense, because they're trained, they're being paid for their skill, not necessarily for their time. They're being paid for the skill that they have, because I want them to lock and want them to be busy. Now, that's one thing, right? They don't burn out that easily. Now, the second thing is when you have a process like that, when you see a low amount of prospects, so say that your acquisitions is only talking to like 3 people a day, you got to ramp it up. How do you ramp it up? You go back to marketing, you ramp up the marketing, but you don't kill them. You know what I mean? To do it. So it'll give you like a good perspective based. If you have the KPIs and all that stuff in place, where your bottlenecks are. You know where to come in and then fine tune. If you need to ramp up marketing to get more leads pre-qualified and get more to that number at the acquisitions, that's what you do. If you have enough leads on the sourcing with the VAs, is there something happening in your conversation when you're pre-qualifying that it's not making it over to acquisitions? So you're able to pinpoint stuff when you have a process in place. But yeah, it's the last thing that you want to do is burn your talent, and it can be done very easily like that if it's yeah.
Let me mention this. Rafael's offering a wholesale business blueprint for free. You just go to 1000houses.com/wholesale coach. Okay, because Rafael offers coaching in this department. Several things, man. When you were talking, I'm thinking like a million things. I hope I don't miss all of them here. One is a great place to start. When you don't have money, you're a professional deal finder, because the guy who finds the deal controls a whole bunch of property with just a piece of paper, and it could be very lucrative. Second thing you said, which really jumped out at me, was hustle is a season. What you don't want to do is wait till you get so burned out that now you think, I got to get some systems. There isn't anything left of you to do a system. You have to start building your systems while you're still got that vigor and that passion, and you're not worn down to a nub. If you wait till you're completely burned out to start systematizing, you'll even be shitty at that, because you don't have no juice left. You know what I mean? Nothing left.
100%.
You're jaded. Yeah. You're crazy. You're thinking about quitting, but you don't want to quit because the money's too good. But your tank is empty. So don't wait till you're empty. I love that. Hustle is a season. And so make part of your hustle to start systematizing before that season runs out. Yep. Other thing is, I like the way, if you're expecting VAs overseas to close your deals, they're not good at that. they're not closers. They're not salespeople. They're just to sort through 1,000 phone calls and say, here's 100 that answered the phone that didn't chew my ass out.
Yeah.
They're, they want to talk to somebody, or there's a chance they'll talk to you. They're like, weed it out. I like that manager that you have right now. My acquisition guys are taking it from there, and they're making the call and trying to close. But I actually I interviewed Larry Goins one time, and he had 2 VAs on a split screen behind him live. And I was interviewing him, but I could see them; they were muted. And he has his VAs on camera. Whenever they find someone that wants to talk, they just mute their prospect. They open the mic to Larry and say, hey, Larry, we got a hot one here. You want to talk to him? Here's the rundown. And then Larry takes them right then. Not really how I want to do it, because I don't want to be stuck in an office waiting for these people.
You're anchored, yeah.
Yeah, but there is a plus to it. Yeah. At least we don't have to try to call these people back. They're engaged right now. They're on the line right now. Sometimes it's hard to get them back on the phone. So there's all these nuances. You got to find what works for you. But if you're looking to get in this business, or you're just not doing as much wholesale as you want, please consider talking to Rafael. Just go to 1000houses.com/wholesale coach. Over there's the show notes. So anything we talk about on here, you'll be able to go there. You'll be able to get your free giveaway, the wholesale business blueprint. Kind of shows you the outline of what your wholesale business might look like if you're not doing everything.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Believe me, you're going to need this blueprint sooner or later. And yours may or may not look exactly like his, but then again, maybe it will, because proven track record, need to stick to it as close as you can. Every business though is different, right? Or do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Every business is you're gonna have different talent that comes in. You're gonna have different markets, so you're gonna do some pivots. I mean, that's granted. Then it's gonna happen. However, the framework though, the principles behind the structure are gonna be similar. And if it's okay with you, I'll do like a quick little breakdown on what they are. Like stage number 1 is sourcing. You're sourcing the leads somehow, some way. It's pay-per-click, driving for dollars. It's cold calling, whatever, right? You source the leads, and all they're doing, and this is where the VAs get plugged into. All they're doing is gauging for interest. Raise their hand. Doesn't matter if they want $1 million. They raise their hand. It goes to a lead manager. That's a pre-qualifying process. That's stage 2. So they get a source, they get pre-qualified, and we go for condition, motivation, timeline, and price. If 3 out of the 4 match, we send it over to acquisitions, because now there's a conversation that can happen that can be negotiated. Now there's a problem there that we can come in and solve. So by the time they make it over to acquisitions, they've been touched twice. You know what I mean? So it's a higher quality lead. They're not plowing through all these records and whatnot. So now they go through the acquisition process. The contract gets locked, and it goes on to stage 4, which is dispositions, right? We start to sell the deal, and we have a very methodical approach as to how we sell the deal in different markets throughout the United States. That happens. Most business models stop there. They get paid, they get the settlement statement, they the wire into the bank account, and then boom, let's do it again. But I feel that it's very important to have the last 2, which is the measuring part. The stage 5 is measuring. So you track your KPIs. What happened throughout that deal? Where did the deal come from? What campaign was it? How much did we spend on that campaign to generate that deal? What's the ROI that thing is giving us, right? So now you have metrics, you have KPIs, and you can, what gets measured gets improved. Also, did we leave any money on the table?
I am always interested in how many touches that we touched. Like, when did we first contact them? When did the house sell? Yeah. And then your salespeople and your VAs start to see, like, wow, we stayed with this guy for 8 months and he finally caved in. So you can't give up on any of these leads. You know what I mean? Because you'd be surprised how many come in months or years after the original conversation, because they just have their circumstance close in on them too tight, or they get too fed up, or they finally realize that their property is not worth $1 million, and now they're getting real. And so I think the oldest one we've had come back that we made 90 grand on was a little over 4.5 years. They were waiting for someone to pass, and then they had to wait for estates, and then there's always a black sheep in the family, and they had to work through it. It finally came up, and we got the call. But 4.5 years later, that VA that started that call and connected with that person, it paid 4.5 years later. I'm always interested in that,
Yeah.
and I really believe tracking's immeasurable. I mean, like to really what it does for your business.
No, absolutely. I mean, running a scorecard and then keeping tabs, right? A lot of times, and this is what the hustle mentality will have you do. Like, I don't need to track numbers. I just got to get it done. I got to get the deal in. My KPI is my bottom line.
Well, they don't have time. They don't have a system.
Exactly.
They don't have time. They don't have a system.
There's no time. And what happens? You can't step away from it. So the measuring part gives you a pulse of where your business is, right? Okay, this is how my business is doing, but it also sets the standard for what you're gonna require. Okay, cool. Yeah, now because I have my metrics and I'm tracking, I know that my cold callers have to dial 300 people at least, a day, and then have 10 conversations and generate 1 or 2 leads each one of the cold callers. That's a basic KPI for the operation that we're running for each caller, right? So if you quantify that by 6, they're supposed to be getting anywhere from 10 to 12. Now it's something that based on something tangible, right? It's not just an idea that popped up like, I think you should be getting this. No, it's based off of past results. You have a baseline and you can hold people accountable to that. When you plug people into it and you hire, this is what's doable based on the system that we have. This is what's what you're required to do. These are your tasks and responsibilities, and then you can go off to Hawaii and then take a trip, and you're still going to be generating results. Why? Because you have a way of keeping.
And if they're not hitting their numbers, you have a decision to make. You live with their lackluster improvement, or you got to get rid of them and find someone else, or you train someone else while they're there. And then once this guy gets up to speed and starts outperforming him, then you let him go. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at it, right? But
100%.
You got to have numbers.
I love that you're saying that, because if they're not hitting their number, if they don't have results, it's because of 2 things, right? One, they're not hitting the numbers. If they're not hitting the numbers, it's an attitude issue. If they're not making the dials they're supposed to be making, if they're not having the amount of volume they're supposed to make in terms of activity, it's an attitude issue. If they're hitting the numbers, meaning that if they're required to dial 3 people and still no results, it's a training issue, right? So that even will clarify what kind of actions you need to take to improve the business. If it's an attitude issue, boom, they're out. Hire fast, fire faster. And if they are putting in the time, the effort,
what was it?
Train. Yeah.
So we go by hire slow and fire fast. Like, we really put our guys through the ringers and stuff. Like I say, there's always shades of how to do everything, and you got to do how it fit. We just got tired of we really tried to see if we could find the right person if we spend a little bit more time and do some personality tests or something.
Yeah. I hired based off of that.
There was a lot of people there's some people that I hired that I never would have hired, but the test said to hire. And one of those guys is my premier guy, and he's still around for 5 years. He's a mechanical engineer that got laid off in the oil crash. And I thought, this will never work, but the test says he will. And he did. And he's a fine asset. I was a horrible hirer, which is why I went to that way. Everyone I hired, I liked. I thought they were cool. We put them in. They didn't do shit. So I said, I got to quit hiring. I got to find some other way to hire, base my hiring. So again, if you want your wholesale business blueprint, go to 1000houses.com/wholesale coach and get that. You'll also be privy to Rafael's podcast. You'll also be privy to his websites and everything that he has. So if you want to know more about him, even get over there, get your blueprint, and then also do some research. Again, people will say, yeah, wholesaling is just a job. And that's what it is if you're the wholesaler and you're the guy wearing all the hats. But you can make wholesaling a business. Rafael's not the only one who's made this into a lucrative business, and they're in Hawaii while they're knocking down, hordes of cash. The other side of it is, you don't have to do 1 million houses to have a successful wholesale business. I mean, even if you're wholesaling 2 or 3 houses a month only, and sometimes if you're part-time, just 1, it can change your whole life. It can change the whole way you live. It can change your whole retirement prospects. And, if you decide you want to ramp it up and take it to another level, there's always that coach out there that's to take you to the next level. Right. I like to say something about wholesaling that I want some of the wholesalers to think about. Now, I coach how to seller finance. So I take all the wholesale deals from people like Rafael and the ones that I find, because I figured, if the wholesalers can find these deals, I can find these deals. I just have to learn how they're doing it, and I can cut them out. That's what I was thinking. You know what I mean? Because you see those wholesale fees and you go, damn, it pays well to find these houses to originate the purchase. It pays well. So, but I just want to plant a seed, and I'm not knocking any business or saying any business is a better. You have to do what's right for you. But even Rafael said that he wholesales his deal and moves them into a different strategy, a buy and hold or a fix and flip. I want to present the owner finance strategy, because when I get a down payment on my houses, I'm averaging 10% is the minimum. I'm averaging a little under 15%. That looks a lot like a wholesale fee in most cases. Now, you probably got it down to a science, and your wholesale fee is more than $8,000. But when you ask around the country, what's the average wholesale fee? It could be right around $8,000. And so the pros, they're getting more. I understand the pros are getting more, but my down payment looks a lot like that wholesale fee, but I'm still owed, and I average about $500 a month positive cash flow in each deal. I'm still owed 360 months of $500 a month positive cash flow, of which I am not a landlord. I'm just the bank. So $500 times 360 months is $180,000 I still have coming to me after I've received what looks a lot like a wholesale fee. So maybe a strategy for y'all is to be wholesale, but when you find that cherry, go ahead and seller finance it, and you still get an upfront fee called a down payment that's non-refundable, that's yours, but you've got some cash flow coming in. That is really more passive than most strategies, because you're just a payment collector. You're collecting the mortgage. No one ever calls the mortgage company and says, hey, my air conditioner's broke. They don't. And if they do, the mortgage company's gonna hang up on them. They're gonna say, it ain't my house, it's your house, fix your air conditioner. So I would love to throw my hat in the ring for your plan B. You're wholesaling, you get your feet on the ground, you're cherry picking now, you got some money in the bank, you need something to do with it. I like to throw my strategy in there to say, maybe consider seller financing instead of being a buy and hold guy, or instead of the fix and flip guy, to create some cash flow. Fix and flip is not cash flow. It's one time, it's a bigger check, maybe. But being a landlord, to me, I would rather be a seller financier than be a landlord on houses or apartments.
If your cash flow is limited as a landlord, I mean, say that you're cash flowing $300, $400 and it's leverage or something, and AC goes out, I mean, you're screwed. You know what I mean? It's stuff that happens when you have.
That's the problem. That's the problem I presented both sides. A lot of millionaires have been made with rent houses. I'm not bashing. I'm just going to show you there's another side to the coin. I think the biggest myth portrayed in the real estate guru world is the buy and hold, because they say, well, you're collecting $1,000 and your payment's $600, so you're making $4,800 a year, and then they just go on from there. Well, it's like, wow, you just glossed over every repair that could ever happen, like it was never happened. And that's typical. But in the seller finance business, when you receive a check, short of having to foreclose on somebody, it's your money, because it's just the payment. And it's a different strategy. I've done 2,500 deals in or about my hometown of San Antonio since 1996. And that's the strategy that I love. But if I was starting out, I couldn't start out at that strategy. I'd have to start out like a wholesaler, you know what I mean? Or I would find the deals and I'd have to partner with a money man and give him a large portion, if not 50% of the deal, which I did that a lot. 50% of a profit's a lot better than 100% of zero, right? So
nothing.
And plus I was partnering with guys. Let's talk about that for a second. You can partner with doctors and lawyers who have the money, but they're bringing nothing to the table, and you will not learn anything from them about the business. Who you want to partner with is people that are flipping a whole bunch of houses or have flipped hundreds of houses in their career, because you're going to learn something from that partner. You'll tap his network, you'll tap his brain, and you'll tap his bank account for the money. And all that's really great. If I had a choice, now that I know the business as good as many or most, it's okay to go get a doctor. But in the beginning, I'd rather partner with a guy that was a pro in my business.
Learn and
so
learn.
I could learn.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, man. It's been great. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate your professionalism and what you've done. And if you're out there and you're interested, please go to 1000houses.com/wholesale coach. Connect with everything that Rafael has to offer, Rafael Cortez. Be sure and get your wholesale blueprint so you can get an outline of what the business looks like. And believe me, if it's not rocket science, but it's what you choose to study and what you choose to become good at, right? So if you have a passion for this, or you think you do, this is a good place to start. Anything you want to say to the folks out there, maybe the people that are fumbling around or not having that much success in real estate, or they're thinking about going into real estate, anything you want to say to them before we wrap up?
Yeah, it all starts with and this is gonna sound cliche, right? But it starts with a vision. And I don't want to, I don't want to talk about the business vision. I don't want to talk, I want to go, to the individual vision. What do you want for your life? What does your life look like? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And is what you're doing right now gonna get you there? Or do you see yourself in the same place in 5 years? Is that good or is that bad, right? But think about, have those deeper conversations. A lot of times we just, the tendency is to go after the money, the amount. I want to make $1 million. I want to make $100,000. I want to make whatever. But there's no emotion, no attachment, no personal anchor linked to that. And that's where a lot of people fizzle out. And we need that, right? We need to have a sense of direction, a sense of perspective, a sense of purpose as we're going through the process. Not to figure out our life purpose. That's a whole different conversation. But to have, a purpose on the actions that we're just taking, right? And is this vehicle the right thing for me? If you have that in place and you figure out what that looks like, at least have a decent idea, you're going to be okay.
So I have a philosophy that the most important thing in your entire life is just while you're working your job to figure out in your part-time, you got to burn your candle at both ends a little bit, but you got to figure out in your side hustle how to replace the income from your job so that you can walk away from your job. And that might only be $3,500 a month. It might only be $4,500 a month. So scrap all the $1 million ideas and just figure out how to get that, I call it your freedom number. And that's not vacations and boats and all that stuff. It's just, what does it take to pay my bills, my mortgage payment, my insurance, my car, my whatever it is you think you can't live without, insurance, electric bill, the basics. And if you figure out what that number is, it's usually not that big. And all of a sudden, things kind of shrink down and they get more doable in your limited belief system, right? Yep. And then the reason why it's important is because you get that $4,500 a month or that $5,000 a month, and you don't have to have the job. You just freed up 2,600 hours to become a pro, 2,600 hours a year to become a pro. And that's when you go get with a Mitch Stephen or a Rafael or whoever you think's right for you, and learn as much as you can, like from the internet and the free stuff, and narrow all these creative strategies down to one or two, and then study those one or two or three until you find the one, and then you scrap everything else and you just drill down deep as you can. And when you run out of free knowledge and you're not learning anymore, then it's time to hire the coach, because he'll take you another 1,000 feet down. You know what I mean? Because he's been there. Oh, yeah. And that's my tiny philosophy about, if you want to get free, you start with just trying to get in a business or a side hustle that will replace your job. And most people have to do that working part-time.
Completely agree.
That 2,600 hours is incredibly important, because in that 2,600 hours, you can be, what is that 10,000 hours? We've all heard 10,000 hours will make you a pro or make you an expert or one of the best in the world. 10,000 hours on the violin, you should be one of the best in the world if you have any proclivity at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
So at 2,600 hours a year, you're talking about 4 years to become a monster. Yeah. At what you do. Yeah. The one thing that you have to agree though, right? To put in 2,600 hours, it can't seem like work. You got to be having fun and you got to be on fire about it, because you can't put in 2,600 hours,
it's
just going through the motion.
Yeah, again, I think it's that vision, that bigger thinking, or that personal thinking that really makes it, or helps you make it through the rejection, through the people that, say, piss off, I don't want to sell my house, stop bothering me. That can, start taking a toll to, build a tax, right? But it's having the end goal in mind. Okay, where do I want to get? And that's going to get you through that space. And definitely, I mean, if you're able to leave, and like you said, it doesn't take that much, right? You know, most people I ask, like, how much do you need on a monthly basis to just cover your bills and cover your nut? And it's, you know, $5,000 to $6,000. The average deal in most markets is about $20,000 on wholesale. Our average fee is
because
closer
if
to
you're
the
going to
40,
wholesale
but
houses,
yeah, it's how many deals a month do you need? Like,
if you're going to wholesale houses, wholesale the expensive houses, right? Because $20,000 nothing on a $300,000 house or $400,000 house.
you can
Yeah,
tap into
so
markets. So yeah, I completely agree.
well, man, it's exciting to talk to you. I hope that we've excited someone out there. What turns me on is, you know, I've worked with people that started with nothing, that became multimillionaires and are living a whole different lives. And to have those people sometimes fly or drive across country just to shake my hand to thank me, because I've only talked to them, you know, on the phone or whatever, online, and then they come to personally thank me because their whole life is not even remotely close to what they were. You need the input from people that have been there, because you got to keep your head screwed on straight. You can't let people piss on your brain. You can't sabotage yourself either by not budgeting, by not spending money, by not having discipline. There's a lot of things that go into it, and it's all kind of a life experience. It's not just about making money. You can actually become a better person on a whole lot of fronts by getting focused, getting discipline, and achieving a goal that you didn't even think you could do at first, you know, way out there for you.
Right.
You know,
100%.
All right, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much again. One last time, 1000houses.com/wholesale coach. I would like to thank livecom.com for sponsoring this episode, livecom.com. It's all about mass texting, phone capturing, and lead generation, and all another dimension in touches, all for 2 cents a prospect. It's probably the cheapest money you'll ever spend to stay in touch with people, that your prospects or your possibilities, or to connect with people. So check it out, livecom.com. I average 4 days on the market in my seller financed homes, and I don't have any signs in any yards. I used to, but I don't have to anymore. I have 10,000 people that want to know the next time I have a seller finance property. I can text them for 2 cents each, and I can text them all at one time if I want. And I can tell all 10,000 of them in a matter of seconds, here's another house I have for sale. They are all wanting my house. They all want to know. I'm not spending money on one person that doesn't want to know. And no matter how many text messages I send out saying, if you're no longer interested in this, please, you know, reply with stop and get off my list, I still have 10,000 people on there that are sincerely interested. It's the best money you'll ever spend. Livecom.com, livecom.com. Thank you. All right, we're out of here. See you later, Rafael.
Thanks so much.
Bye.